Houston's offseason expectations continue to grow by the day. Dan Holgorsen just stated that he thought this team is on pace to be just like Cincinnati and make the college football playoff. And while that might be an outlandish statement for a lot of people, this is still a team that deserves a lot of recognition, a lot of love for the talent that they're bringing in and the coaching staff, the work that they've been doing. This is a team that expects to win the AAC this year, a team that expects to win that New Year's Six bowl bid, and a team that heading into the Big 12 is going to be one that is trying to take over that new conference as soon as they get there. For now, we're looking at a team that's going to have an offense that has a ton of talent, needs a couple pieces to step up, and a defense that has taken tremendous strides under Doug Belk, and a defensive line that is one of the best in the entire country. The top two really shouldn't be a surprise. Everything starts with the passing attack. Tank Dell is an explosive playmaker, and he needs some help this year. That's going to be a big key. Now, does a guy like Matthew Golden step up? The incoming freshman has been picked by a lot of people to be a starter this year, but there's a lot of talent around him as well. But we're talking about Tank. He is literally a tank, and not because he's big by any means. I mean, he's probably 150 pounds soaking wet. That doesn't stop him. 90 catches, 1,329 yards, 14.8 yards per catch. I mean, the guy just does everything for Houston's passing attack. 12 touchdowns. The difference between him and Jeremy Singleton, the next guy, was too big, though. That's the big thing this year. Tank Dell is a dominant force, but he can't keep doing it on his own. This Houston team, if they're going to do that jump that Dana Holgorsen thinks they're going to do, he's going to have to find some help. There's going to have to find some depth, and it's going to make life easy for whoever's throwing them the football. This year, that's going to be Clayton Tune. He's coming in for his third year as a starter, and it seems like he's destined to have his best year yet. If you look at what Dana Holgorsen's quarterbacks did at West Virginia, you'll see that they improved every single year, or actually they had their best year their last season in Morgantown. And Clayton Tune threw for over 3,500 yards and 30 touchdowns last year. So if he takes a step forward in that production, holy cow, we are set for one of the best seasons we've seen in Houston history. Probably not the best when you're looking at the Case Keenum era and the guys like that before him. He's probably not going to throw for that many yards, but this is going to be the best quarterback in terms of stats we've seen since that era, really. Greg Ward was solid, but I think that Clayton Tune statistically is going to have a better season than we've seen anything that Greg Ward was able to do, or even De'Aaron King. This is where the fun begins. Now, when Ed Oliver was at Houston, it was really just kind of Ed Oliver, and the defense didn't really have anything else to offer. So you're looking at a defense now that has a ton of depth, but still has some guys that are going to stand out. Derek Parrish is one of those guys. The reason why I like Derek Parrish so much is he came to Houston as a linebacker, and a lot of guys make the transition to defensive end or to a new position. But I think when you looked at Derek Parrish at about probably 225 pounds, 230, they sent him to defensive end in a new system when Dana Holgorsen took over, and he took it in stride. He took it as a challenge to make himself better. And last year, it kind of all came to fruition. You saw a guy with 12 tackles for loss, 5 sacks, and then at certain points in games, he was the best player on the field. He took over and dominated some matchups, and he made a huge impact on the opposing offense. Now, if he's able to do that again this year, I think it's because of the depth around him that also helps him elevate his game, but he has proven to be an extremely talented player on this defensive line, and one that defensive line coach Brian Early is going to love having back and having him help be a leader for the guys that are new or the guys that are going to start for the first time. Nose guard Chidozie Nwankwo is one of the most underrated players at his position. Again, we talk about all the time defensive tackles, nose guards. They don't typically get the love that the defensive ends do or the linebackers do because they don't produce the stats that a lot of them do. This is a guy who's going to be dominant, but probably not have the stats that you're expecting. He's not going to be like an Ed Oliver where he's going to have 17 tackles for loss. He's not going to have those big numbers, but he is going to force quarterbacks to leave the pocket. He's going to drive guys back. He's going to drive centers and guards insane because he's so powerful. Even though he's a little bit undersized, he has a ton of power in his frame to be able to displace guys, to take double teams and open things up for the guys behind him. And that's something that's not going to show up in the box score, but definitely deserves to be talked about. Linebacker Donovan Mutant is yet another player on the defensive side of the ball. This is a defense full of underrated players and one that deserves a lot of attention. He is the leader of the front seven. He is going to make a lot of the calls. 77 tackles and 6.5 tackles for loss is a pretty solid season. And when you look at what he's capable of doing, he's a hard hitter, but he's also become more well-rounded by being able to make some of those calls, by being able to be a leader and get guys into the right position. That is where he makes the biggest impact. I don't think there's another player who understands the snap count or has as much explosiveness as DAnthony Jones. He gets a chance to be a starter this year, and that's huge for him. When you look at it, 8.5 tackles for loss and 6 sacks in 2021, and that's really in limited time, not even as like a rotation player. Rotation, I feel like he would get more opportunities, but with the chances that he got last year, he made the most of them. He was capable of beating the best players in the conference around the edge, and his ability to time the snap. I don't know if he studies it, but this guy knows what he's doing, and he is capable of making tackles look bad within the first half a second of the snap. Patrick Paul has extremely good potential, and it's just a matter of him being able to put it all together. And the biggest thing is him keeping his head cool. A lot of times he's getting personal foul penalties because he wants to dominate so much that he is going to try to send a message at any point during the game. And sometimes that really hurts Houston, but he's doing a good job of getting that under control because when he is at his peak, this offensive line is really good. And it's a big reason why the passing attack has taken off. And even the rushing attack has developed as well. And Patrick Paul is going to be one of those guys that's going to be a first team all conference talent. It just comes down to consistency and his ability to take his game to the next level. Safety Javarius Owens is someone he has the talent. It's just a matter of being able to do it on a consistent basis. He has the range to cover deep, and it's really fun to watch him run with guys deep, deep third, deep half, just deep safety by himself. The whole mouth guard thing in the helmet is kind of bothers me. I don't know why. Maybe because it's usually blue and the wrong color for some reason. But, he was an all-conference selection, so he's doing something right. It's not the mouth guard look, but he is playing a lot better than he was when he first started playing for Houston. And this secondary is going to get tested a lot. Losing Marcus Jones and Demarion Williams is going to be a huge loss, but guys like Owens can help limit how much damage that does. And with the guys surrounding him, they could have been on this list too, but he is the big one coming back. I think that if he takes another step forward, this secondary is going to be really fun. Tank Jenkins, if your offense has two guys named Tank, you better be good. And fortunately for Houston, both of their tanks are good. And while Tank Jenkins maybe isn't the tank that you expect in an offensive lineman, he was solid and he developed into a player that Houston really needed and Houston really relied on in 2021. Now, like I said before, the offensive line play was a big reason why they were able to take a step forward. And if he's able to do another step in 2022, we're looking at another all-conference lineman on the same team. And that's going to be huge for an offense looking to take another step and be able to be as explosive as they were last year. Alton McCaskill's torn ACL in the spring is going to hurt. I just felt like I couldn't leave him off this list. Honestly, I probably would have put him third if he was healthy. But a torn ACL means that we're probably not going to see him this year, which is too bad because his 961 yards, 16 touchdown freshman campaign was really fun to watch. It was, a projection of what could have been this year. Now, he will come back next year. Maybe he comes back towards the end of the year this year, and there's a few guys that are going to step up in his absence, but losing him is going to hurt the rushing attack a little bit. it just might look like a different offense. They maybe don't take as there's going to be a different guy running in between the tackles. Now, Tajon Henry is back, but he's more of the work around the edges and whatnot. So it's going to look a little bit different, but we had to talk about Alton McCaskill. You just can't leave him off this list. And Houston is going to be a fun team to watch. If you're looking at expectations or just looking at the talent, this team deserves to be in the top 25 conversation, the NY6 conversation, and it's going to be interesting to see if they're able to live up to those expectations set by not only their coach, but college football fans in general.